Yo, what is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome to episode 28 of my Tracksuit to the Top series here with Lewis FC in the Sky Bet League 2. Never thought I'd be saying that. I'm going to be honest, I thought it would have found another club to move on to, but I've kind of got a little bit attached to Lewis with this save, and I don't know if I'm going to end up leaving, despite that being the whole point of this series, but that's not a bad thing. So yeah, if you missed last episode, I have completely spoiled what happened, but we did get promoted via the playoffs. And now we have a lovely spike of green on this league history graph as we've now entered the Football League for the first time in the club's history. We've also gone professional, which is nice, and along with the progression that we've made, I've obviously had to strengthen the squad. This year we're sticking with our same system as last year, but there's just a lot of new faces coming in to really add some true quality to the side, I guess. So anyway, we'll start off with the transfer history because transfers are always the exciting thing, particularly when transitioning to the Football League. New players become available that you might not necessarily a bit thought you'd be able to make. But anyway, we'll start on the outs because there was one big out, and that was actually Joe Robinson. A bit sad to see this guy go, but we sold him for £2.2 million. He's actually back on our squad on loan for the year, but he's actually in my reserves, and I'm probably going to send him back. But we sold him to Reading for £2.2 million. I mean, let's be honest here, he's an 18-year-old with bags of potential and a really, really good player, and he could be a good Premier League player potentially. But he has some real underlying issues, such as the fact he's a Vanarama Conference quality player at the moment, inconsistent, he doesn't have the greatest intelligence, and he's quite one-dimensional in his play in terms of his technical attributes aren't that great, and he's pretty much relying on his speed to kind of carry him. So to sell him for £2.2 million is fantastic. As I mentioned, he does have Premier League quality, which is probably why Reading want him. And they might look at it on the face of things and go £2.2 million for a Premier League potential player is fantastic. I don't think he's going to reach that potential. I really don't. And he only played 13 games for us last year, and he wasn't a massive kind of player for us, so to get £2.2 million for him is incredible, and it has meant that my wage budget has gone through the roof for this year. So if we look at the wage budget, you can see here we're actually spending £36,000 on wages, which is a mad amount. But I guess a combination of the Matthew Lewis sale and the Robinson sale has left us with a very healthy bank balance of just shy of £2 million at the moment. But for the rest of this year, we're going to be receiving about £180,000 a month. So financially, the club's looking very healthy. We're going to receive almost £2 million in clauses over the next 12 months. So financially, we're in a very good place despite our high wages. But as I mentioned, the wage budget and the wage kind of transfer amount being spent on wages has gone through the roof, and that's because we've made some real quality signings. With me moving up into the Football League, it's opened up a few new opportunities to get in a few players I otherwise wouldn't have been able to sign. And these are players who I've brought in who, some of them are actually League One quality players, so I'm quite excited by them, and I think we could be looking at promotion this year just off the players we've signed. So let's get our teeth into them. We'll start with the first one, probably the best player actually, Alex Samuel. Signed him from Swansea, I want to say. Yeah, Swansea. We got him in on a free transfer, they released him. You can see he's had loan spells at a number of League One clubs. You can see actually last year he played for Burton and he got 12 goals in 34 games. It's worth noting that Burton finished 5th from bottom in League One, so he was playing in a very weak side. But this guy's an absolutely fantastic striker. He's very optimistic about his time at the club. And I'm very optimistic about his time at the club too. I think he's going to be a good goal scorer for us this year. You can see in pre-season, he's got 5 goals in 7 games, so that's really impressive. And yeah, as I mentioned, I'm quite optimistic about this guy's future because he's got 15 finishing, he's got some great technicals, great mentals. He's a very good player, and I think, as I said, you know, he's played in League One the last few years. I think stepping down to League Two, he's going to boss this league. Perhaps his aerial ability lets him down a little bit, as we are going to be playing him as an advanced forward, and so his lack of heading, you know, might cost him in some situations, but for this level, he's an absolutely incredible player. To get him on a free transfer and only a 1.5 grand a week is a fantastic signing. Anyway, the next player we brought in was Cameron Borthwick Jackson. What a name that is. We brought him in from Manchester United. He was on loan at Rotherham last year, who actually won the Sky Bet League One and got promoted to the Championship. So yeah, we've signed him here, £1,800 a week. It's not a small wage, but he's a very good centre-back. As you can see, he's played for England's under-21 squad, which is very promising. And according to my scout and according to my you know, coaching staff, they think he's a League One quality player, and that's fantastic. He's a very good fast centre-back as well. and partnered with his new centre-back partner, who I'll just move on to now because it kind of transitions nicely, Pierce Sweeney. I think these two are going to have a really good partnership just because they complement each other so well. So this is Pierce Sweeney. He's played for Ireland's under-21 squad a lot. He's actually on £2,500 a week, making him one of the biggest earners at the club. You can see, looking at his history, another player who's had a number of spells on loan at League One clubs, having played and been contracted to a Premier League club. In his case, it's Reading. But as you can see, last year he played 34 games for Crewe. If we look at Crewe, I don't think they had that great a season, so he did quite a good job there to get as good a rating as he did. Actually, they finished 9th, so they weren't a bad team, but he played a large part in their campaign, so good to get him in on a free, and I think, as I mentioned, he's going to complement Borthwick Jackson really well, just because these two players, one's fast, one's fairly good in the air and a little bit stronger mentally. I just see them complementing each other well, and they're both League One quality centre-backs according to my coaching staff, which is a massive bonus. Anyway, the next player we brought in was Liam Walsh. This guy we brought in from Everton. Good little player, this guy. Yeah, he's on £1,000 a week. You can see here he's a centre midfielder. Last year he spent time on loan at Barnet, and the year before that at Dagenham, both obviously League Two sides, and he performed fairly well for them. Didn't have standout years, but maybe this is the year he really matures, as he is still only 19. Good vision on this guy, has some really nice technicals, good mentals as well. Just a really solid centre mid, really. The next player we brought in was Jordan Jones, a player who a few FMs ago was a very good player. I brought him in here just because he's so versatile. Obviously, the fact he can play centre mid as well as left attacking and right attacking mid and centre attacking mid is a massive bonus, particularly considering the system I play is essentially he covers 4 positions that you might have to come on off the bench to play, which is obviously incredibly useful to have. This year we do have 7 players on the bench as well, so we really are able to pretty much cover all areas of the pitch. But you can see here we brought him in for £44,000 from Middlesbrough. He's going to be a backup player more than anything. You can see here he's never really performed in League 1 or League 2, but he's on fairly small wages, only £1,000 a week. And he's a player who I think could be a useful player, particularly coming on off the bench just because of how athletic he is, particularly his speed could scare a few teams in our division. Anyway, the next player in is Bradley Wright Phillips on loan. Bit of an odd one, this one, but I needed a backup striker, someone who was capable of coming in. You can see here last year he was playing and still is technically contracted to Leeds, who were in the Premier League for 1 year before getting relegated. He had a really poor season with them, only playing 2 games last year in the Premier League and contributing next to nothing. He joins us in League 2 on loan. I think he's going to be a very useful striker, this guy. I don't know how much football he's going to get, but he's certainly a good player to have coming on off the bench, particularly if we just want to throw on another attacker. And at this level, he's a solid player. As you can see, he'd be a good player for most League 2 sides. Anyway, next player in is Brad Collins, just a backup goalkeeper, just because we didn't really have one, if I'm honest. Obviously, Craig Mullen's been our first choice goalkeeper for a while now, and Ricky Banks had been our backup, but I needed someone who was a little bit more capable than Ricky Banks. So we brought in Brad Collins here, just a useful backup on really small wages. Don't worry, Ricky Banks still is in the club, age 29, but he's not quite the player he once was. And as you can see, he'd be a good player for most of Vanarama, North and South sides. I want to keep him in the club because he's one of the club's record kind of league appearance players, but he's just not got the quality really for this level. Anyway, the next player in is Lewis Thompson. Fantastic player, this guy, really like him. You can see he joined us initially on trial, and he has been appointed vice captain at the club. I think he's going to be a really good player, this guy. He's naturally a centre mid, although I'm looking to perhaps play him into the centre kind of defensive mid position. I feel like he could be a very good anchor man. He's a very good defensively with some really good mentals. He does have some fairly nice physicals and other technicals going forward, so should we want to play him in a slightly more adventurous role, he's more than capable of playing that if we really need to reshuffle our team. But a great little free transfer to get. We signed him from Norwich, where he was previously signed for £650,000 when they were in the Premier League, but as you can see, he failed to impress there. Last year he spent the year on loan at Burton, which of course we have a few players who spent the time at Burton last year, and he made 25 appearances, averaging a 7.09 rating in League 1. So making the step down to League 2, I'm hoping he's going to be of real use to us. Anyway, the next player we have in is Ivan Wassi. This guy is just a really good versatile player. I like my versatile players, and this guy can play either full-back position. He's nothing to write home about, but he joins us on a free on only £500 a week. And as you can see, he can play centre-back as well as left-back and right-back, which is very useful to have. And he joined us on a free transfer, having been released from Man City. Last year, he did spend the year on loan at Bury in our league. Didn't perform particularly great, but as I said, he's only really going to be a backup player anyway. The next player we have brought in is actually another former Manchester City player, and it's Brandon Barker. As you can see here, he's played a decent amount of clubs. Last year he actually spent loan time at Oldham before then moving on to Stevenage. Both League One teams, he never really impressed for them, and despite getting regular football on various loans, he's not really blossomed. He joins us on a free transfer. Again, a great, useful play. 15 pace and 15 acceleration are really good for at this level. Hopefully, he'll be able to terrorise some defences playing out wide. And the fact that he can play up front as well as either attacking midfielder position is obviously very useful considering the shape we play. Next player in was Joe Robinson, who, as I mentioned, we re-signed on loan. The next player in was Kenji Gore. I think I'm saying that right. Answers on a postcard, please. But as you can see here, he went to Swansea on a free transfer. Last year he played in the conference for Newport County and actually had a really good season for them. Obviously played in the same division as us. He got 13 assists and 12 assists and 13 goals. Before that he did have loan spells in League 1 and in League 2. In League 1 he did okay for Crewe. Didn't do incredibly, but he comes to us in League 2. He's on fairly big wages, but he's only on a one-year deal. This is perhaps the more risky of the transfers, but there isn't too much risk because he is only here for a year. I already mentioned Pierce Sweeney, but just one other thing to mention is the fact that he is the club's new club captain. Obviously with the progression that's happened over the last kind of 12 months at the club, particularly since the initial departure, I guess, of Matthew Lewis and obviously the bringing in of lots of new kind of released players and trainees, we don't really have a leader in our midst. And this guy's a very good leader. I think he's young as well. I kind of feel like he's the kind of player who will develop with the club and players are going to kind of look up to and kind of respect in a few years' time. And I think he's the kind of player who's probably going to be here for the next few years, which is obviously important when selecting a captain. So anyway, that wraps it up for the majority of the transfers. There are a few others just to tell you guys about, and that is that if you don't know how I find my regions, I've done a video on it every year. I've not done one, I don't think, for FM15 talking about finding my best regions. If you want a video on that, let me know. But I was doing some scouting around Africa, and the reason I was doing it around Africa was because obviously we had players from the Democratic Republic of Congo in our side and a few internationals there. So I decided to have a snoop around Ivory Coast and a few other nations, and there were a few players who jumped out at me, one of them being this guy, Abdul Diallo. Now it's worth noting that when I brought him to the club I had no idea what his attributes were. All I knew was that he was the first choice left back for the Ivory Coast under-21s. He's joined us just on a free transfer, complete punt. He doesn't have a work permit or anything, but he's only on £150 a week. He's the kind of player who might develop really well and end up being a useful player for us. Obviously, in order to gain a work permit, he's going to have to spend a long time in England. But yeah, regardless, he's just a free transfer at the end of the day. If it comes off, it comes off. A bit of a punt. There are a few other players I'm looking at of a similar mould just to show you guys these ones. One of them is Pierre Cisse. This guy I like the look of. Obviously there's not a lot to see, but he's coming in on a complete free transfer with no wages, no nothing. He's actually going to join us in January. He's the first choice striker for the Ivory Coast under-21s team, and he's only 17. And he also had a very good domestic career season so far this year in the Ivory Coast, getting 14 goals in 24 games. So we're taking a little bit of a punt on him. There are a few others. This guy, Majante, we have brought in, or Majate, we're bringing in from Mozambique. That is not just because Lorenko was Mozambican from my Oxford stream save. It may well be. And the other player who we're looking to bring in is this guy, Muchanga Mondlane, who's another Mozambican playing for the under-21 side, and he's had a good little domestic career. You know, these are players who are coming in, and if I bring them in, they're going to be on £150 a week, having not paid anything to bring them in. If one of them turns out to be a fairly decent wonder kid, excellent, I can sell him on for some money. If none of them come off, I've not lost anything at the end of the day. But it's getting to that stage once you hit League 2 where you can start to look at perhaps bringing in one or two regens. Abdou Diallo is the first. Who knows if he'll develop, but he's here and he's in the club. So just to explain that one at the bottom and also talk a bit about what I've been doing transfer-wise. In terms of on the outs, as well as the Joe Robinson one, there's a few players who I kind of have to give honourable mentions to. Darian Neven has left us. it's a sad day, but, going into League 2, he was never going to play for us, but a player who really kick-started my campaign at this club. As you can see, he ended up getting 50 league goals for Lewis, which is really impressive. Bit of a legend there. We also have Lewis Talek, who was another player who was really good for us. As you can see, he's actually joined Braintree. So I hope he does well, because he was a good player for us in the few years he played with us. And as you can see, his average ratings were pretty darn impressive. I don't know if there's any more here, like players who have really been here a while. Sam Cole was already at the club, I believe, when we started, but he's now departed. I believe Muggeridge and Ricky Banks are the only 2 players left from the initial Lewis side who are still in the side now. So, it's changed a lot in the first 3 years at this club, but we have progressed through the leagues at such a pace that we've kind of just had to, I guess, be quite brutal with the squad. But the squad that we now have, I'm very happy with. If we just look at the overall squad balance, it's quite good. The only one area I'd say we might be lacking is just a left back or right back, but we've got that fairly well covered. We have still got some options in the under-21s, a few players who I'm trying to sell. If we can sell them, excellent. If we can't, I won't lose sleep over it. A few players have been demoted from last year, players like Elliot Lee, Answer, Mitchell, Dickey. Players who were important players last year for us, but this year, because of the new additions I've made, I want to keep the squad fairly streamlined. This is the team that I'm really looking at to make a difference for us. So anyway, looking at our starting 11 for today's game, and this is our first game obviously in League 2. It's against Barnet. During pre-season, you can see we had a pretty good campaign all in all. A few defeats here and there. We lost to Newcastle 2-1 and Chelsea's under-21s 4-1, but with the exception of that, some decent results. Yeah, so we're going to kick off things with Barnet here. It's not going to be easy. We have got Millwall in the Cup, but I'm not going to concern myself too much with the Capital One Cup. At least initially, if we get a little way into it, perhaps I'll draw some more focus to it. But for now, the main focus is the league campaign. So as I mentioned, looking at the tactics, looking at who's playing where. Oh gosh, I need to pick someone. Let's put you there. Excellent. Right, so anyway, looking at the team, Mullen is obviously our goalkeeper. Craig Mullen, been at the club a long time now, but been a fantastic player for us. You can see, looking at it, he's made 79 league appearances for the club, which is absolutely fantastic. Also got 22 clean sheets in that time, which is a little bit underwhelming, but he's done a job for us. Left back we go with Muleba. Obviously a really good left back. One thing that I am noticing more and more is that the full back position really is our weak spot. Muleba on the left back position isn't a bad player for this level, but certainly would be one of the first players I'd look to kind of replace given the opportunity. A right back we go with Donnelly. Again, perhaps one of the weak links in the side, although he is a very, very good right back. And as you can see, he has got 1 cap for Northern Ireland. In the centre back position, as I mentioned, we go with our new combination of Borthwick Jackson, obviously the speedier of our 2 centre backs, and then alongside him Sweeney, who of course is now the new club captain. Looking forward to seeing how those two get on at centre backs. They are of real quality. In centre defensive mid for today's game, we're actually going to go with Isaac Hayden. Normally we would go with Lewis Thompson, who's still trying to learn his defensive midfielder position. Unfortunately, he did get a minor injury during pre-season, so as a result his match fitness isn't quite there, so we're not going to start him. Looking further up the field into the midfield area, in the advanced playmaker role, we are going with Liam Walsh, who of course is a very good player. As you can see, his stats really and his attributes really reflect that. He had a good pre-season at the club. And then alongside him we go with Hesketh, who retains his position in the squad at least initially for this year. Obviously he had a great year last year, came in and was a real influencing factor in our promotion. Left attacking mid we go with Barker, the former Manchester City player who I mentioned was a really good speedy option. Looking forward to seeing what damage he can do in this league, particularly with the speed that he has. Right attacking mid, we're going to stick with Barnes initially. As I mentioned, there's plenty of options on the bench this year. We've really got the ability to rotate our side. So he might be a player who stays in the first team. I want to give him a chance in the first team because of how well he played last year, but time will tell on that front as to whether or not he can hold on to that spot. And then up front we go with Alex Samuel, who, as I mentioned, is probably the best signing we've made this year, probably the best player in the club now. The 21-year-old is obviously a Welsh international at under-21s level, and he's a very good player. He's proven himself in League 1, I think, taking a minor step down to come to us with the hope that he'll stick with us for the next few years is kind of what I want to see from him. I think he's really going to perhaps be a core component of our team this year, certainly if we want to get promoted, which I think has to be the aim this year, because in League 2, there's 3 automatic promotion spots and 4 playoff spots. So realistically, the top 7 all have a chance of promotion. And I'd kind of put our team in the top third in the league, or the top third. I'd put us in the top 30% in the league, which is the kind of where you need to be in order to have a chance at promotion. So we'll see how things go. As I mentioned, with our squad, there's a lot of League 1 quality players. I mean, if we look at Hesketh, he's considered a leading player for a League 2 side. And as you can see, in relation to the rest of our squad, he's very much a middle-of-the-road player. It's also worth noting that with my assistant who's doing all this, he has pretty good judging player ability and potential. And I'm gonna take his word for it that we do have very much a League 1 quality side. And I'm hoping, as I mentioned, that we can get promoted this year, because I feel like the players that we've added are really good. I think there's going to be a real... what's the word? A real need for Alex Samuel to be the player to step up for us, but I think he's got that in him. So anyway, let's get into today's game. As I mentioned, we are playing Barnet away. Not an easy game. If we look at Barnet, they are the favourites. I'm just wondering if we can have a quick look at the League 1 table, just because I wouldn't mind just seeing where Barnet are predicted to finish, give you guys the season preview. So actually looking at it, we're predicted to finish 10th, which is pretty decent. Barnet are predicted to finish 7th, so this is a game that they're expected to perhaps win, and that they probably should be doing better in. But yeah, we're in 10th, which is kind of perhaps a sign of how good our squad is. If we look at the players to watch, you'll see that Borthwick... Jackson is one of our players to watch, and then the other player, of course, being Alex Samuel. You might have noticed, you eagle-eyed viewers, that Matthew Lewis, our former player who, of course, joined the dark side and went up north for loads of money to Newcastle, is actually on loan in this league at Carlisle. I tried to get him on loan, but he turned me down. I was heartbroken, but we have to move on and get over it. So that's what we're going to try and do at least. So anyway, let's get into this game. 14-1 odds to win the title isn't actually that bad for a newly promoted team. Clearly, the quality that we have is being recognised by the pundits. But yeah, we'll see how we get on today. As I mentioned, Barnet are one of the favourite teams to go up. They're right up there in the season preview. So this is not going to be easy. But I kind of feel like if we perform to our best, we stand a chance. I'm not really necessarily expecting a win here, because we've got so many new players. I feel like it's going to take a little while for perhaps the cohesion between all our players to get along. What I'm really looking for is to see some good attacking football. Hopefully Samuel or a few of the other new attacking players maybe getting on the score sheet. If we could keep a clean sheet, that would be fantastic. But I'm not going to concern myself too much with that, because it's just something we've struggled with throughout, I guess, our time at Lewis. But certainly just a good account of ourselves here, and our first kind of real competitive gamers. They're on the attack here, and they actually hit the woodwork, but we deal with it. And now Barker on the break. Can you use your 15 pace? No, you can't. You get absolutely... what's the word? Absolutely owned. Owned is a weird word to use there. Anyway, we continue. Oh, that's a chance. That is a real chance. Was it Barker there with the rebound? Couldn't direct it goals though. Now Borthwick Jackson with another chance, and the keeper palms that away. That is 2 clear-cut chances in a row for us there. Really good play. Really good play. But now they've got a set piece. We deal with that. Now can Samuel use his pace? The new player. I'm looking for him to be the difference maker, and he tries to take it around the first man, but is tackled. And that goes to nothing. So looking at it, we've had 3 clear-cut chances, all of which I think have come from corners so far, which a little bit odd, but... we're still in this game. We're looking fairly good. We've had more shots than them. Samuel's through here. Hits it straight at the keeper. But he got in a position to score. I feel overly optimistic for this episode, in case you can't tell. Just because we've got to League 2 in 3 years. And I'm really happy with the squad I have. And I don't feel too under pressure yet. It's kind of an enjoyable place to be at the moment for this first game of the year. Because I don't really know what the expectations are. Given our squad, I'd like to see us really challenge for promotion, but there's not really any pressure on me as manager, which is rare in a game, because usually you've got the pressure of, oh, where is this result going to see us sit? And I'm sure in 2 or 3 games' time, if we find ourselves in and around the playoff spots or in and around the relegation spots, I won't be enjoying it as much as this. But yeah, right now, I'm in a good place as manager. I'm very optimistic for this year. It's kind of like a clean slate. And I'm very excited to see how some of the players we've brought in, who, in my opinion, are just incredible players for League 2, are going to kind of adapt and hopefully, kickstart their careers. Because to be honest, our squad is a very young squad. I don't think there's a player in the subs or the starting 11 over the age of 23. It's a lot of players who have not been given a chance at Premier League clubs who we've brought in for pretty cheap prices, who I'm kind of just looking for them to, I guess, just make a mark and show what they can do, because a lot of them have had loans at this level and the level above us, so they're more adapted to this. But it's a bit different when you're doing it on loan and there's not so much pressure on you than when you're actually a key component of a first team, which is what they are here. But anyway, they're on the attack here, Barnett. Ball gets cleared away by Muleba though, and now can we attack Barnes? Off you go, switches the ball to Barker, switches it, hits the post. Barker, what a chance that was. Cuts inside but couldn't quite find the net. Looking at the stats, we are dominating this game. For a team predicted to finish right up there in the table, this is a very good performance. If we can make it count late on, that would be absolutely fantastic. I'm going to make a change. I'm going to bring on Gore, I think, or Gore. Still not sure how to say his name. And we're going to play him in place of Barnes. He's looking a little bit worse for wear. Elsewhere, I might take off Brandon Barker as well and bring on Petrasso. So we've just got 2 fresh legs in either inside forward position. But as I mentioned, I'm feeling optimistic about this performance. This has been very impressive. Looking at it, we are dominating. The only thing we're not dominating is the scoreline. And perhaps it's a little bit concerning not to get a goal here. But it's the first game of the season. Players are going to hit form, I'm sure. And that's a good point. That's a very good point, because it's away from home against one of the league favourites. So I'll take that. Not the most entertaining game for the live com, unfortunately, but that is a very good result, and I'm very happy, because that is a good sign for things to come potentially. We really dominated that and we bossed that game, so that's fantastic. But anyway, that is going to wrap things up for today, guys. Episode 28, obviously done and dusted right there. Hopefully you enjoyed this. I went into a little bit more detail with my transfers and the players, just talking a little bit more about what's going on at the club and what my kind of plans are. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you now feel kind of filled in with the squad that we have and have some kind of connect to the players, because I know with this series the rate at which players have been coming in and out is sometimes kind of hard to kind of keep track of players. As I mentioned, the big player I think to look out for this year is going to be Alex Samuel. I think he's an absolute bargain to get in on a free, a fantastic player at this level, and I'm looking forward to seeing what damage he can do in this division. But anyway, that's going to wrap things up for me and wrap up episode 28. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this series so far. Obviously fantastic to see us in League 2. I'm really optimistic, as I've said for like 3 or 4 times, with the squad we have and the potential for this year. Let me know in the comments where you think I will finish if you've watched until this point. Prove that you're a loyal viewer. Prove that you are one of the few people who watches till this point in the video. Let me know where I'm going to finish in the comments. And other than that, guys, that is going to wrap things up for me. Thank you so much for watching as always, and I will talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.